question, of course, is what the policies actually are of the party. Well, we have a whole range of different ideas for different aspects of the country. One of the ones that's most important to me would be the policy regarding education. I believe that a good quality of education is one of the most important things for a country. This doesn't just mean increased spending, there are other aspects as well. For example, one thing that I would consider different to what many other parties can offer is that we would be putting a lot more emphasis on different paths through education. For example, rather than just the idea of school, college, university, you would have the option of adult education, going back to learning some years after leaving school. We have apprenticeships, which are a really nice idea and that need more emphasis put on them as a viable option. Going to university isn't for everyone. At the current time, around a quarter of all school leavers in the country go on to university. That is a significant portion of the population, and to try and increase that further, I feel would not be the correct way forwards, simply because for the other 3/4 of the population there are better alternatives. I mean, not everyone wants to have the same career, and if they did, then it would not really work for the economy, because everyone would be doing the same thing and we would have too many of one type of person and not enough of many others. So more apprenticeships, more adult learning courses, more college courses, more people studying these things, rather than just increased availability, but push it so that more people actually go towards these options, rather than just assuming that they go to university or they are unsuccessful, because that is complete nonsense. I would like to see university cheaper as well. I'm not going to say free. I have concerns about the idea of free university places, and the idea that effectively it would be completely subsidised by the government and therefore would be paid for out of the taxes of people who weren't able to go to university for free over the previous few decades, which I feel may not be entirely fair, and also the prospect of people going to university just because they can and not actually caring at all about it. But significantly cheaper would be a definite step in the right direction, and continuing our current policy of having the university tuition paid for by the student in the future, their future self, when they have more money, paying the money backwards to themselves to study effectively, which I think is about the best method of paying for education that any country has at the current time. As well as that, there is the economy. I mentioned in the previous video that I would like to see further investment in modern industries such as computing, robotics, renewable energy. That's a big deal. We need a lot more renewable energy, and if we do it right, we can make a lot of jobs out of it. Not just supplying the energy, but also building wind turbines and solar panels and so on. We could even potentially construct them here and export them to other countries, if we put the effort into making ours the best quality that they can be, which is an area where we can compete with countries that have lower cost labour. Manufacturing is in decline because we don't want to pay people who do the manufacturing the low wages that people in other countries get, and it's not appropriate to suggest that we reduce the amount that we pay people in order to stay competitive. But if we can put the investment and the education, going back to the previous point, into supplying the best quality staff, the best innovations, the best quality of product, then we can compete on the world stage. I'd also like to see more houses built. there's been a bit of an issue lately with people basically suggesting that increased immigration is responsible for a lack of jobs and lack of houses. Effectively, what I'd like to see done is to increase the number of houses and increase the number of jobs so that the country can cope with an increasing population, whether that be through more people being born or more people immigrating or whichever. It seems reasonable just to suggest that having more houses and more jobs, rather than trying to get less people in the country, may be a better way forward. So it would not be too much of a challenge to build more housing, and certainly to build housing that people can afford. If there is more houses, then the house prices actually would go down somewhat. And of course, people who own a lot of houses, people who rent them out, might complain. Hence why a lot of parties are reluctant to put the idea forwards. But to increase the number of houses in the country would be hugely beneficial. It would reduce the cost of houses, it would reduce the cost of buying a house or renting a house. It would mean that more people would be able to have their own home earlier in life for less money, and would have more money to spare to spend on other things. To increase the number of jobs is slightly more complicated, but effectively government investment and subsidising in various industries such as the modern technology, robotics, computing and so on that I've already mentioned would mean more jobs and more better paying jobs, which would significantly benefit everyone. It would also mean more people paying a higher amount of tax without us having to increase the tax rate, which would mean more government spending for education, healthcare and so on. In addition to which, I also have a number of policies in regard to the idea of local government, the emphasis that should be put on that, the idea that the MP of a constituency maybe should care about the people in that constituency. And I know that a lot of them do, but to have it as part of the government structure would be beneficial, to have a system whereby local issues would be put forward in Parliament with the same weight behind them as national issues. The Progress Party in particular would be putting a specific emphasis on all of its candidates and hopefully future MPs to be caring about such local issues for their specific constituency, and I would like to see that made a general thing for the entire country.